I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the April 2nd Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call, please.
Brooks.
Present.
Barrett.
Here.
Sykes.
Present.
Todd.
Here.
Present. Open meetings law is posted on the south side of our chambers, is in the hallway outside of our chambers. It is also on our website. Proof of publication was in the News Times March 28th, and it was also publicized on our website. Next up, we need to review and approve the minutes of the March 19th Board of Commissioner meeting.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Stan.
Second.
Thank you, Leroy. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Barrett.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
And Fulton.
Yes. Adopt today's agenda.
Move to adopt today's agenda.
Thank you, Jack.
Second.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Sykes.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Barrett.
Yes.
And Fulton.
Yes. Officials forum. No, he's got something. Good. We're cruising today. Public comment. Anybody from the public who would like to come up right now to comment, they're more than welcome to do so. Morning, Dustin.
Good morning. All right, Dustin Marvel, of course, on behalf of OPPD. At your last meeting, I did speak to you about a signed letter outlining OPPD's long-term plan to transfer K-Junction to a private developer that would contribute to the community through nameplate capacity tax dollars. On March 21st, I delivered an original signed letter to Chair Obermeyer, and I'm here this morning to highlight it publicly as well as to make it available for anybody to review that would like to take a look. For those in the room, of course, I left a pile of it here, but we'll also get it published up on our project site. As the letter kind of outlines, OPPD currently holds the generation interconnect rights as well as other legal rights to K-Junction Solar and is currently involved with the project's planning stages. We believe that the decision to transfer the project to a private developer both helps us to achieve success in today's regulatory environment as well as provide those financial benefits that have been discussed here and would be provided to the citizens here in York County. As a public utility, we definitely want to help our communities thrive in Nebraska, and that means here as well. With this pledge, keep in mind that allows for those millions of dollars of economic development benefits to be seen here in York County. And I really do want to assure you that these things are real. There are other counties in Nebraska that are currently receiving similar payments. Case in example would be Wayne County is currently receiving about $1.6 million every year. And your neighboring counties to the north, south, and east also receive nameplate capacity tax payments every year through renewable energy production. So at a time when Nebraska's legislators, as we kind of heard yesterday, are considering some significant tax cuts and really hard caps on funding, nameplate capacity offers communities in Nebraska a reliable income stream that can be counted on for a long period of time, unlike a lot of tax policies. These benefits can, though, be dramatically decreased and have been seen and even eliminated in some counties in Nebraska because counties have resisted the change or let intimidation or fear become part of that talking point instead of looking at what was best for the entire community and what was best for their entire field of constituents. As Nebraskans, of course, we take pride in being good neighbors and learning how to compromise while we uphold private property rights. A fair compromise to the sticking point that's currently being discussed, of course, is setbacks. And we agree and believe that the 660-foot setback from non-participating neighbors with homes is a reasonable expectation. But then we'd also ask you to consider that about 150-foot setbacks from non-participating properties without dwellings is also reasonable. This compromise helps you to achieve a strong regulation, as you've heard from the community, as well as respect the private property rights of those in the participating parties. That helps to ensure your local schools, businesses, and the government, you, receive those millions of dollars of economic development benefits. So I ask, just in closing, to please continue to collaborate and work to find a fair compromise as we figure out what's best for York County, Nebraska, while we protect those private property rights that are so important. Thank you.
Thanks, Dustin. Anybody else from the public at this time would like to comment? Please come forward. Morning.
Morning. Glad to be back from New York State. I wasn't going to comment, but since we have the facilitator for OPPD here telling us all the wonderful things about his project, I would propose that maybe we should help Sarpy and Douglas and them with their zoning rules. I see they have a little trouble between on east of Highway 50 along Capehart Road down to Springfield. I am aware of one place where there's quite a bit of conflict between who does that street. If a Papillion street sweeper does part of a gravel road, that ought to be quite interesting. But anyway, more serious note, yesterday was the 1st of April. That's the beginning of the last battle of World War II for Okinawa. We lost 12,500 troops in that battle. It lasted a little over 3 months. We've taken most of it in 3 weeks. But that facilitated our using the atomic bomb because there were so many Japanese civilians committed suicide and the troops wouldn't do anything but was to die for the emperor. And the kamikaze killed 10,000 of our sailors and Marines in their ships. So with the Marine Corps, I will grant you, has improved some. You know, their mess at Camp Lejeune. They had an 80-acre solar industrial site that they closed just recently for various reasons. The main thing was down by the hatchery or where the married people live, and that's where we had the most water pollution. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm rattling on here, but the MOs for these green energy deals are all the same. They change every 3 years. They get to a different person, so the person you dealt with, you don't have any idea where he is, and so the one you're talking to doesn't either. I can also testify to the fact that when they built the 345 power line, I remember the facilitator for, I think it was Consumer Power then, telling me, when we get done, you'll never know it. We're here. Well, they just came through here the other day. They go through it every 3 years. The whole thing's fallen down from Aurora to Dorchester 3 times. And the tornado's gone through it a couple times. But anyway, it's not all hunky-dory, and I appreciate your accommodating my concerns. But I think there's another thing also. You want to go back to smaller setbacks. I listened to a webinar on I think the Farmers Union put it out on solar regulations. It was a county north of here ways. The man that owned the facility wrote the zoning rules, and he didn't have anybody complain about it except one guy was worried about when he put the fence on he wouldn't be able to hunt, but that didn't pan out. But then the next year, the man that wrote the rules changed the setback from the feedlot from wherever he was, 1/8 of a mile to a 1/2 mile because of dust. Thank you for your time and Godspeed.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody else this morning? Morning, Willard.
Morning. Last time I forgot to pass things out. This time I'm not going to forget. If anybody wants to pass this around, you're welcome to. Anyway. Commissioner Ott, did you bring your egg timer like we talked about yesterday? Nope. I wish I've been trying to find one, I really have. Anyway, okay. Willard Peterson, Bradshaw Township, a different part of York County, but it still counts. This is just a reminder, a good teaching tool is that you go back and review things that were said at the last meeting. I suggested to you that the setbacks for solar be cut in half, and I ripped a piece of paper in half, so this is just a good teaching reminder of what I talked about at that time. All right, so this morning, I want to talk about setbacks again, but this time I want to talk about different setbacks. In your meetings, you've talked about through all of these talks, you've talked about that, some of you have talked about that you would like to have things, compare, as the old saying goes, apples to apples, and not apples to oranges or whatever. And I think that's a reasonable thing. That's something that people use all the time. And by my understanding, that means comparing two things that have more things in common than they don't have. That's my definition. Some people may have a different one, but I don't think so. But anyway, and I was not aware, until I started reading these zoning things, I was not totally aware of the setbacks until you guys brought them up with yours, comparing the setbacks for feed yards and solar farms. And part of the conversation seemed to me like was you were saying that, well, some of these setbacks for feed yards are even farther than what setbacks for solar, and some of you, I got the idea you were thinking, well, maybe we should have a match closer. Well, I never heard anything about cutting back on the setbacks to feed yards to match solar. It was the other way around. And to me, I thought, which refers to the picture that I have here, I thought apples and to cow pie, if anybody doesn't know. Now, you are free to decide which you want to be a solar farm and which you want to be a feed yard. You're perfectly welcome to decide which side is which. But I think you might see where I'm going with part of this. I cannot figure out in my head how a solar farm and a feed yard match in much of any way. Surely, for sure, not pretty much equal proportions as to what they're about, what they do, and blah blah blah. So, my only thought process of this is that, remember, you're free to decide which side is which. But my thought process is I have the same thought process after I saw these setbacks for feed yards. I have the same thought process I had about the others. They also should be cut in half, because what I've read of these and so forth, in my opinion, some of these are way, way, way too far. Now, the other thing is that I don't know where you guys are in your thought process with this, but if I ever get invited to your house, if you're thinking that these things should be compared fairly close, I am not going to eat an apple pie when I come to your house. Okay, now, a couple other things real fast.
Hurry up.
Yeah, I am. A couple of these ideas are things I did not think of, but they were things I heard from other people when I was talking, and I thought, well, that makes sense. somebody mentioned to me about, we've heard an awful lot about, solar farms ruining the scenery in the country. Everybody moves to the country to have nice scenery. And somebody made the comment to me, well, when did it become other properties owners to make sure that there was nice scenery so their neighbors could have nice scenery to look at? Since when is that in anybody's property thing? If you buy property, you have to keep it pristine so it looks nice for everybody else. Now, nobody's trying to make a junkyard, but I mean, depending on whose scenery is what. Is it a house? Is it a well-kept yard? Is it not? Do you care? So I hadn't thought of that. Another one is a word you hear all the time, and that's eminent domain. Well, they suggested that maybe what's going on when a group or a board like you designates to people, because of whatever you do, other landowners, that stops them from doing something they want to do. They didn't use this term, but I kind of thought that's kind of reverse eminent domain. You guys or whoever is saying they can't do that on their property because I don't want them to, or I don't like what it looks like, or I don't know where the money comes from. Doesn't make any difference. How is, to me, in a way, that's not different than you're forcing them to do something they don't want to do. To me, that's reverse eminent domain. So, anyway, now, the other one, my voice counts. All the people's voice in this county counts. Just keep that in mind, no matter how they decide to project their voice. Thank you. And thank you if I went over.
Yeah.
How much time over?
Okay, we can move on. Public comment, anybody else? We lost Sharon, so I assume she had to go to the court, so we'll come back to that one. I need to, I'm gonna come forward and take care of yours quick. So this will be, the Lancaster, discuss and act on the agreement with Lancaster County Youth Center for Juvenile Detention Services. Okay. Is this
They sent me the contract and asked me to give it to you guys.
year in, year out? I mean, not year in, year out, but it said in there that it had not been updated.
Correct.
Okay,
Not since I've been here, at least, so
Okay.
it's almost 2.5 years now.
okay. And any other information other than the contract? I mean, it pointed the highlights of it, and then, of course, the contract followed behind.
Not really. It's not often that we utilize them, but they're utilized. But when we need them, we need them. We just had one a couple weeks ago for the first time since I've been here. So it's not used often, but obviously there are circumstances that we have to place a juvenile there, or law enforcement or probation place a juvenile there.
So, and obviously, we have no facility to do this ourselves.
No, we don't have
Lancaster
any
County.
facility around here to incarcerate juveniles for a temporary basis. So.
Okay. Okay. Any questions, Allison? Sorry, we did not make her announce.
Who you are?
I'm fine with that.
No.
Yeah.
Allison O'Neill, Clerk Magistrate of the County Court.
Thank you.
So where is it that they are kept when you use them?
In Lincoln. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Do we know, it says a new rate, was it up significantly, or do
I
we
don't
know
know
what
the answer to that. This
okay.
is the first time I've seen the contract since I've been here.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what it was prior to
Mhm.
this. So.
Thankfully, we don't have to use it that often.
Right, yeah, exactly.
At the rate that is described there.
Right.
A lot cheaper to put them in jail. That seems strange, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Did we have anybody review the contract? I mean, it's not that it's gonna get changed, but
No, I
Did we-
just gave it to Kelly to give you guys
Okay.
to review it.
I think in the motion, we could have it contingent upon review from the county attorney's office, if that's the process you're using.
right, yeah, just to have them glance over it, so that we've had some eyes on it. I would make that motion. We'll approve it pending a review of the by the county attorney.
Thank you, Daniel.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Brooks.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yeah.
Todd.
Yes.
Bear. Stover.
Yes. Thanks for joining us today, Alice.
Have a good one.
Have a great day.
Oh, yes.
Okay, we're gonna jump back up then, and we go, there is no need for general, executive session or general assistance case. Review and approve the payroll and vendor claims. Everybody had an opportunity, I assume, to look through that. Did you have any questions regarding those? They were relatively light. Which is kind of nice. There is no additional claims that I'm aware of either.
Move to approve the claims as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Sykes.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, there is no funding transfers that is needed. Cash-wise, we're doing okay. We got the second half of our property tax credit that's been utilized. I know that during Governor Pillen's town hall meeting and speech yesterday, I believe he used the number of only about 50% of the people in York County were utilizing the property tax credit. You know, so it's there for people to use, but apparently it's somewhat cumbersome. I don't know.
It's not too
The
bad.
accountant takes care of it.
Right, yeah,
So
exactly.
anyhow, we need to get that word out. Next up, we will meet with Elaine Menzel from NACO. And as you come forward, Elaine, just name and obviously who I said you're representing.
Excuse me. Good morning, members of the York County Board. My name is Elaine Menzel, as Randy indicated, and I'm from the Nebraska Association of County Officials. I'm here today, perhaps you remember last year that we came and visited you. It was our goal to get to all 93 counties, and we were able to do so last year, and have a good start so far this year. But our goal is to let you know who we are and make sure that you feel welcome contacting our office if you have any questions. And you will also attend, hopefully, some of our events that occur. Perhaps some of you were able to just go to the recent spring district meeting that was occurring in March. I'll bring up some other things that will be coming up. As you know, May 14th is election, so I'm sure Kelly will be pretty busy. County Board Workshop is Wednesday, June 12th through June 14th, and that will be held in Kearney. The County Budget Workshop is June 12th. This is perhaps going to be important, and it will be dependent upon what happens at the legislature, because part of the proposed package is to essentially totally rewrite the budgetary act with respect to how counties submit their budget and would proceed. So we encourage you to attend, and particularly if it passes the legislation, but even in the event it doesn't, because as you would note, they overlap with respect to, or it's concurrent, I should say, with the County Board Workshop. So it's helpful for purposes of travel. And again, that's in Kearney as well. The County Treasurer and the County Clerk workshops are both occurring during the same time frame as the county boards. The clerks are in Kearney and the treasurers will be in Grand Island. The assessor workshop will be sometime in August. Generally, it's either the second to last or last week of August. I don't have a location out this time. With respect to our NACO, or our annual NACO Legislative Conference, that's going to be held in Thursday, October 11th. The location is to be determined. However, it's looking hopeful that it will be at the new NACO West site in Ogallala. And so hopefully you'll be able to attend, and as well, if you regularly read the NACO newsletter, you can see the progress that's been occurring on that building. With that said, if you don't, or if you're not currently signed up for the legislative newsletter or the regular newsletter, I encourage you to do so. You can go to our website and sign up if you're interested. There's a wealth of information that you can obtain, both what's going on legislatively, but also what's going on in the counties. I will note that April is County Awareness. I'm not sure if that's quite the catch-all phrase that they're using for it, but if you need resources or would like resources, our NACO website has some things that you could use for purposes of getting the word out. And one last event that I'll mention is the NACO Annual Conference, and that's Wednesday to Friday, December 18th to 20th. And again, that's in Kearney at the Venus Conference Center. I previously talked about the Ogallala location and how it's your building, and encourage you to come. Not only is it going to be a good meeting location, we're going to have some partners or individuals lease a couple of sections of that building, but we're going to have both the MIPS and NACO presence, which MIPS, for those of you who don't know, is our computer division. We thank you for being a member of the National NACO. Hopefully you find a lot of benefits with respect to that. I know that examples that we have used for purposes of some of the things that they have brought to counties are back when the ARPA dollars were being distributed and that type of thing. And they have been a great resource with respect to how counties can use those funds and that type of thing. With my mention of ARPA, remember that December of this year is the last time frame when you can make a determination of how those funds are going to be expended, and then for purposes of actually following through with respect to it's the following December, as I recall. Now, I'm going to be hopefully respectful of your time and not take a great deal. Please feel free to ask questions along the way. I'm just going to mention a handful of legislative things that are going on, and in fact, as I meant, well, I can't remember if I mentioned this, perhaps I was talking to somebody else, but we're on, there are 8 days remaining in the legislative session. With that said, it'll be done April 18th. There's a gap of some recess days. It's essentially a week, but the purpose for which they do it is to do pocket vetoes, meaning if the governor happens to veto something, then they would have an opportunity to respond to that, and that's why they've got that last day for that purpose. I'm not going to say all legislation is not important, but there are some items that are perhaps a little bit more important than others. Just a couple things to mention are some items that deal with open meetings and public records. So there have been some changes to the Open Meetings Act. There's two provisions that are two pieces of legislation that have different effective dates. And so for that first one, and perhaps I'm jumping the gun because I haven't talked to John how we're totally going to implement this, but this is going to be my recommendation, is that for that first time frame, we just send out the link with the information that you can print off the pages. And then the poster would come that second time because it's going to be more complete. Now, with respect to the font, it's going to be about this big because of how much text they've added to it. But that's beside the point. And then public records law is another provision which there have been, in fact, that legislation was signed just last week. And there, with that said, there's going to be explanations as to the impact of these provisions within both information we send out to you in the legislative summary, and then also if with the Open Meetings Act, it would have a brief summary of that.
Elaine, in regards to the Open Meetings Act, is there any major changes, or is it just some housekeeping type?
There are a couple things that are notable. The Open Meetings Act would have notice provisions in the event, say, that your newspaper is unable to get it published timely and those types of things. There would be some options for purposes of how you could do posting. Now, hopefully that's not the case for you. What it would be is that you could post on a link, a statewide link that is newspaper based, so it's still going in conjunction with the newspapers and that type of thing. And then another thing that's important is that and perhaps it's not noticeable because perhaps you have public comment at each meeting, but there is currently a provision in the statute that says the public must be able to speak, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, but they don't have to speak at each meeting. Well, this removed the provision that it wouldn't be at each meeting, then they would have to be given an opportunity to at each meeting to be able to speak. So, and then there were some other provisions related to virtual conferencing and that type of thing, but it was primarily with respect to the virtual conferencing for some other types of boards and conventions and that type of thing. So, and as I also indicated, please be sure to read the legislative summary so that you're aware of that. And generally that comes out. That I'm not the one that does it, so I Beth might not appreciate my putting a time frame on it, but generally she's pretty good at within a month or so getting that time out, depending upon her schedule. Now, with respect to the other topics that I'll mention the governor's proposal to make some property tax changes, and what that has. Part of that has a 3% cap on counties or other political subdivisions. There's several other components. A lot of objections are being raised because of a 1-cent sales tax increase. And so it was last Wednesday, I believe, that they began debate on that legislation, and the number is LB 388, and they debated it for 4 hours for purposes of cloture, which it means that, so filibuster means there's extended debate. So then cloture is a motion to stop that debate in an attempt to try to move the bill forward. The concern apparently, as projected, the concern was that perhaps the votes were not there to advance that or to get the cloture motion passed. So the introducer and the chair of the Revenue Committee asked for a pause to occur so that the Revenue Committee could work on that legislation over the Easter weekend. They were, of course, going to take Sunday, Easter off, but then work on it some of the other days. I've not seen what came out of that meeting. However, as we speak, they would be debating it, so there should be perhaps proposed amendment to it. So there is a time frame with respect to generally revenue bills and that type of thing for purposes of debate, and that's 8 hours. And then on the next stage of debate, it would be 4 hours and then 2 hours. Now, those time frames for cloture or for filibuster or debate have been modified for purposes of issues that are considered more polarizing or something like that. I'll just say that it were an abortion or a death penalty issue. You know, you're not going to perhaps get people to change their minds. So there's, they just would proceed. So far, there's not been an issue of that nature that they have actually incorporated that lessened time frame. So I think it's one of those things where I say stay tuned, because I'm kind of not knowing what the proposal is going to look like right now. I think there's going to have to be a lot of recognition. If I were to predict, I don't know that she has the votes to proceed. When I say she, the Revenue Committee chair is who I'm suggesting. I don't know that there's votes to succeed, particularly with the pushback with respect to increasing the sales tax provision. And, if you're not able to get that piece in there, you're perhaps not able to implement all of the property tax provisions. Another factor that plays into this is it would cost the state significant dollars to, pay for some of this. And there's only $20 million on the legislative floor for purposes of A bills and those types of measures. And so, given the bills that have been advanced so far, that's, well spoken for, and they're going to have to back off on some of those proposals. And when I say there's $20 million on the legislative floor, where that comes from is that the budget bill has already gone through this year, and it's not the mainline budget bill, but rather a deficit budget bill. And the reason there's a budget bill and a deficit budget bill is it's a 2-year legislative session, the long session and the short session. And anyway, now I'm going to skip to inheritance tax proposal. That measure is LB 1067. I know that board chairs and perhaps you shared John's comments with the board previously. It was legislation that was prioritized by Senator Clemens, and it appeared that he did not have the votes, and so he backed off in an attempt to get those additional votes necessary. Our position has been that without replacement revenue, we cannot, we can't do anything but oppose it. And so that's what we have proceeded for. With that said, we have had the position also that we will negotiate in good faith if something is brought to us or proposed. And there was discussion with John and the introducer, and there was actually an amendment that was proposed and published online at this time. And the NACO board met after seeing the language and made a determination that there's perhaps not enough of a guarantee within some of the proposal as we proceed this late in the session. But with that, made the agreement to proceed and hopefully put together a work group that we can come to some fruitful conversation in our future. It will take some hard work to get to that point. Now, that doesn't mean we know what the introducer's reaction or the speaker will do ultimately the rest of this session, but during comments the speaker made last year, it's like essentially, or I'm sorry, last week, he essentially indicated that this week is the last week before, or for them to pass all general file legislation, because you have to have things set over for such a or certain time frame before it can move on and get to that final reading stage. And so, my understanding is the introducer is to show that he has the votes or have an agreement with us. And at this point, he doesn't have an agreement with us, with NACO based upon the board weighing its options and stuff. And with that said, there's also a piece of it that perhaps has not had a legislative hearing, or does not appear to have had a legislative hearing during these last 2 years, and that is an important aspect in that each piece of legislation is to have a legislative hearing prior to it being enacted. So I've gone on.
So the amendment that I seen was lowering a percentage of the second class, or what I call the
Second and third,
class.
or, yeah, it would
Lower from 11 to 5%, the one, and
6, both were going to be
6
6.
go to 6. Okay.
But 11 to 6, and what was it?
15, I think, yeah.
15 to 6.
Was
and
that the
11 to
only
6.
changes? Was that
For purposes of the inheritance tax, and there were some reporting requirements that were modified too.
okay?
And then, with respect to, I believe it was gonna be, counties were gonna get an additional 50 cents of the documentary tax.
Yes. There was going to be some monies that we collected that we would retain and
Yeah.
here.
And then also, and I didn't pay attention sufficiently to this piece because it was, got through part of it, but it was the motor vehicle sales tax, that, a collection of that. Now, the amounts are perhaps going to be close, but the risk we were going to be taking is that motor vehicle sales tax had not had a hearing, as I previously indicated. And then also, the risk is that where it's a state loss of revenue, that may be part of that 20 million I referred to earlier that they've only got to work with.
Okay.
And so that may be easy for them to, cut. And then we're just left with loss with respect to the inheritance tax.
So essentially, it needs to wrap up this week.
For,
General file.
For purposes of general file, and that's where the bill currently stands. So, now, it could be attempted to be amended into something on select or that type of thing, meaning a revenue bill. It would, not to put the fear out there, but in the event things were starting to coalesce and move on that LB 388 or a comparable revenue bill, this could be something where it's revenue related, might be packaged with that. Although if they were to do so, they would probably lose some votes. So, that's the risk they would be taking.
Okay.
Now, those are my predictions on some of this stuff, so please don't attribute them to me if I'm wrong. But, so if there's any questions, I'm glad to try to.
Anything for Elaine?
It's all good information. Thanks for
thank
sharing.
you. Well, and thank you so much for having me. First and foremost, we really appreciate you guys and your service with respect to the work we do. Randy, you've been beneficial to us with respect to being a presenter, and we'd welcome the rest of you to do so as well. So.
I would mention also that, she brought up the Ogallala, and, but their office is located just off the southwest corner of the Capitol lot, and definitely stop down
Yeah,
and see their office also.
I appreciate that, Randy. I was remiss in terms of saying that, but you're always welcome. And we do have a very nice conference room, and in fact, we hold our legislative meeting at the beginning of the year. That's when we take our positions on bills and stuff. And John's a statistics guru, so he calculates these things, but it's roughly a third of the legislation that we will end up dealing with in terms of taking positions on, or at least reviewing and that type of stuff. The NACO board actually is the one that takes the positions. But
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Elaine. Have a
Thanks.
great day.
Okay.
Safe travels back.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Discuss an act on salary for Deputy County District Court Clerk, and actually she was, it's not Sandra. Chandra. No, she was sworn in this morning at 8 o'clock, and we set obviously the wages for the deputies, and so then that was not attached to your. That was in it was 2359, I believe. It's probably gonna be easier to go ask. Can you do that, please? By the time I find it here. While she's looking at that, I did also put on the agenda today, which it was after the somewhat marathon meeting last time. We got to the end of it, and we had it on the agenda to discuss an act. We had talked about the changes, but we didn't act on pushing it forward. So that's why that's on here, which is, I'm glad it was on here because there was it looks like there was an error as far as some of the numbers, and we'll talk about those when we get to that next. And then we'll also have board equalization too.
But we just wanted to make sure he got it all typed up right before we acted on it.
2389 is the dollar. So as we set that, that's what the Sherilyn is recommending for a wage for her deputy. And by statute, it has to be a percentage, at least 65% of what the elected official makes. So, entertain a motion.
So what percentage is it?
I think it was like 75%. I think, I don't know for sure.
And this is actually, obviously, the one that left had been there longer, was a little bit more than this, so it isn't matching that, but this is what she is offering.
Can you give us a figure?
2389.
On the recommendation of the official, I'd make a motion to set the deputy salary at the suggested amount.
Thank you, Daniel.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Sykes?
Yes.
There?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so next up, discuss and act on zoning regulations proposed to move forward. As I looked through the last meeting last night, listened to it, both myself and I know Daniel did, I don't know if any of the rest of you did, but in the packet, Nate, we had talked about changing the wording for the bonding, and that we didn't get that wording in there, so we need to work on that wording, at least what's in front of us. And then, there was just some small details of the fee, which we have to come up with a fee, and the how tall. I think the main thing is, obviously the setbacks. And the one that I caught, and Daniel had also caught as we talked yesterday, we talked about the setback in class 4 for non-participating dwellings. And I don't know that the information we had before, the non-participating land was at 660, but I don't know, and now it's written in there at 20 at the half mile. We didn't necessarily talk about that, but that got changed. So is that just, not to put you in the hot seat, was that just clerical, or did you hear, because I went back and listened last night and we talked about dwelling, obviously we talked about existing, or participating to not do the 75 feet on those, but that was left in there or put in there when before it was 660.
You want me to just come on?
Sure.
Yeah, I figured. I was up here for a couple hours last time. I think if I remember right, that one, I made notes that in all the classes for the one that everyone agreed to be lower was the cemetery, and my understanding was everything else was half mile, so I think that's just how I heard it.
Okay.
And that's how I put the notes, but if that wasn't supposed to be the case, yeah, that'd just be fair.
Well, when you compare it to what we had previously, in there was a different number of the non-participating. Is that the way you took it to?
Right, correct.
Non-participating land being that. So if there is discussion on that, we did not act on it last time, so this is our time to act on it. So this is our time to discuss and finalize that. We will get, I don't know what your court is today. Do you have court today?
We do, Mr. Johnson's covering it right now.
Okay.
And then
I know that
whatever happens.
I talked to Daniel that we would just work on this today to make sure we get the bond. We said that we wanted the bond 100% and reviewed and stuff like that. So that language we need to get finalized in there also. Any discussion on the non-participating property, not dwelling? We already talked about the non-participating dwellings. Any discussion on the non-participating property? It was in there at 660. So this is just, say, 2 quarters sitting by each other. Is there a feeling to have it at that half, or is 660 where it was at? Okay.
My intent was to leave it where, I was fine with that
660.
based on what the planning commission had gave us.
That's what the zoning committee came up with.
Right, correct.
Okay. So that being said, then did everybody else have an opportunity to review the document? Did you have anything else, Daniel?
The only other one, and I don't know, I had some questions on the 1% cap.
So that's at the very start.
Yep. And I don't know. Maybe this didn't go out to everybody. Did you get the? Okay. All right.
Was it not an email?
It was an email, but it must have not been sent out to everybody.
So future the aggregate amount of all renewable energy projects shall not exceed a total acre footprint of more than 1% agricultural taxable acres in York County. That's what you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay?
Should, so it was questioned, if that would limit individuals and putting it in their yards. And so should we add in, I guess my intent was that would be a cap on more, or the larger commercial utility scale.
Plus 4?
Right. Probably 3 and 4. So I guess I'll throw it out there. Do we need further clarification on that to add in that the aggregate amount of commercial renewable energy projects? Does this board have thoughts, or do we leave it as we have it wrote?
Well, I think obviously, I think the intent was more so, in my mind, was more so the class 4.
Right.
So if you want to put that in there, that would make sense. I don't know that I would agree with the 3 involved in that, but the
Okay.
class 4 involved in that. I'm fine with that wordage. And that leaves your homeowners, your small 1, 2, and 3 out of that, just 4.
Right.
Definitely 1 and 2 out of it, I would think.
Right.
Was there any others?
So you're wondering if we need to put some statement in there to that fact?
Right, exactly. The way it is worded, the way that I proposed it, and the way that it's worded, it could be. It could, if we were to get to that cap, then if somebody wanted to do a small individual acreage piece, the way it's worded, that could be capped. And I don't know that was necessarily the intent.
So the wordage, furthermore, or further, the aggregate amount of all class 4 renewable energy projects shall not exceed 1%.
Right.
Would you be okay with that verbiage?
Should we put 3 and 4?
Right, put 3 and 4.
Right, and so, but I guess class 2 is considered a commercial. So yeah, adding what I was going to propose was commercial, but the way we have class 2 titled is small commercial, so that would it be included in that. So, I mean, I guess we could just put in class 3 and 4.
We can do commercial, whatever you want.
Well, the commercial, I think the commercial, like, if we're gonna change it, I mean, I would be fine with letting and it kind of goes to that, class 1 and 2, we're allowing those to just be permitted, by the zoning admin, and so really staying with our split in that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 probably would make the most sense.
Okay.
Agreed.
3 and 4, or what are you gonna do?
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
3 and 4. You want 3 and 4? Okay. I think it should be 4, but there's 4 that want it that way, so we'll put that verbiage in there. Was there anything else? Because we're gonna go to equalization now.
Okay.
And just take care of that quick.
Yep.
It's 9:30. So at this point in time, we will recess as the County Board of Commissioners, and we will convene as the Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Gross.
Here.
Bear.
Here.
Todd. Sykes.
Here, open meetings law is posted on the south side of our chambers, and also on the wall outside of our chambers, and also on our website. Proof of publication, once again, was in the News Times March 28th, and on our website. Review and approve the minutes of the March 19th Board of Equalization meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Gross.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yes.
Yes, and adopt today's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Todd.
Here.
Gross.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, we have York General Healthcare Services is asking for an exemption on a Chevy Trax 1LT. It's an SUV. Does not have the year of this, but it does have a VIN ID number. And Megan, our treasurer, has marked it for approval. So, I'm assuming it's brand new. Need a motion.
Move to approve it.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Sykes.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Bear.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we will adjourn as Board of Equalization and reconvene as the Board of Commissioners. So, that being said, then the application, Nate, I'm going to pick on you again. You'd put that application in that I gave you some of that information. You have that just under 2. I guess I think that.
Well, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Because I went back after we talked and looked at that. I think the Class 2 application mirrors Class 1's application.
Okay.
Because we still have an application process, but and so that's why it changed, because we had moved Class 2 into that same application process as Class 1.
Okay.
That was the way I understood that.
So then the application for 3 and 4
Right.
then would be that.
That we need to kind of
Get that,
correct. Yes, correct.
which is going to be similar. Okay. So we'll have to get that application done. And any other. Are we ready to move forward?
The fees, do we want
We're gonna have to get those
to?
done today too.
Okay.
And then we'll have the hearing and
Right.
before we adopt it again.
Correct.
Obviously.
Right. Do we, are you looking for a motion to
Move this
obviously
forward.
move it forward
The changes
and
forward.
set a date for a
Yes.
hearing also?
Yes.
Um,
We're supposed to be checking with the Holtus Center for next Thursday night
Okay,
to see, Thursday, I'd say 5:30.
okay. Do we want to ask her before we make the motion, or shall I make a motion?
Go ahead. Well, to set the hearing for next Thursday,
Mhm.
and then the date, or the place will be, because one of the 2 places will be.
I see what you're saying. Okay, very good. Yeah, I would make a motion to move the publish the recommendations for public hearing for a date of 4/11, Thursday for April 11.
It is. According to that calendar over there.
Hey, did we get it switched?
We did.
Ooh, we're ahead of the game. All right.
And I think 5:30 would be appropriate
Okay. Yep.
time.
But not sure where it's gonna get.
Just one.
Oh,
It'll make you feel better.
Hopefully she's got a hold of him by now.
what?
Way to force him to make sure you know what he's saying.
Do we have comments?
Sure, we think you're available? Because then you have to change it before the last minute. Oops. Wow, it's already done. So then, what do you
Do we-
do to change it?
Yeah, do we? Okay. Because there's no notification of people. Because I had questioned that too. Randy seemed to think we were fine just with a regular notification. Do you know?
There's a section in the regs about editing them.
Okay.
And then I can try to pull them up.
Our attorneys are questioning us.
There, isn't it, as far as,
Notification time. Feeling that we need a full 10 days of notification.
that's Friday.
Right.
Which is between
Well, you have to take in consideration, if you do it in the paper today, they have 3 days before they can get it in the paper too. So even if you put it in, send it today,
you're not getting.
they're not, it's not gonna be in today or tomorrow.
That would be a safer bet.
Is that for the, are you looking in the open meetings?
I'm looking at our regulations right now that says any amendments made, which are the same amendments or regulations, you need to have at least 10 calendar days prior to any public hearing.
That's in the zoning
That's in
regulations. Good. 18th?
We can try for that. That's getting into planting, but.
So's 11 though.
Right, yeah, it's close.
You're already burning.
I mean, I think that.
It's gonna rain that day.
There you go. Okay.
You want to shoot for the 15th?
Could Monday. What do you think?
Sooner the better.
Probably. Thoughts?
Doesn't really matter, I don't think.
Probably not.
There was a full house out there the 11th
Okay.
at, they got that event called Flavors of York.
Ah, yes. Yep.
So there's side rooms available, but this would probably
Right. Yep.
get rid of that.
Right. Yeah, the 15th or the 18th, either one, or this. I mean, we could do it the 16th too, but the 15th is fine with me.
15th being the night before our next
Mhm.
meeting.
Right.
Okay.
That's tax due too, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
15th,
15. What time?
5:30? So then we have motion,
Sure. So move.
Second.
and motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? The only discussion, I'll just make a point that I still feel like the one setback is way too much, so I'll vote no against it. I know we need to go forward and have our public discussion and move that way, but that's my feelings on that, so. Roll call, please.
Brooks,
Yes.
Ott,
Yes.
Sykes,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
No. Okay, that meeting will be then. We will make sure that that is publicized and get everybody that information. We will also work on that today and hopefully here pretty quick and just get it done this morning. Okay, so that takes us to the end of our meeting today then. Committee reports, do we have anything to report? I'm sure we do. Anybody? Stan, you want to start?
Sure. Well, we did not meet with Harv because he's gone, so that meeting was not there. And I'm on the EPIC board and also, not board, but on the committee for the EPIC and for Blue Valley. I get all their communications and I've been reading that, but no formal meetings during the last 2 weeks. And the other thing is I'm also on the legislative committee, and I'm in contact with Jana Hughes. I've spoken with her a number of times, a couple of times, and I text her quite often. So I listen to her opinions, and I give her my opinions. We don't always agree, but she's being kind and texts me back right away. So that's about it for my committee reports. My communication with her is good, so hopefully someday when I need something really bad, she'll go along with my thinking.
There you go.
Dan.
I was in Lincoln at the SIND meeting. It was a good full board discussion. Last Monday, I got to attend the Green Plains opening of their new research innovation center, and that was interesting to see behind the scenes on some stuff that they're doing there. And yeah, that's about the 2 meetings that I attended, looks like.
Kim.
Had no official meeting. I went to Four Corners last night for 3 hours, and they're moving forward with redoing, I'll call it the old half of the clinic. And they have the funding, so they had to push the money forward so that they could start asking contractors to start ordering things, because some contractors informed them, if you don't start moving forward, we won't be able to get the stuff you need to do what you want done. They're talking about 3 months and 6 months to get an electrical panel. So, anyway, I went to that meeting, and everybody should know this. Just Scam does it, I do it, everybody does it. Just stay on our Jana Hughes of what you want or don't want, so she knows, because she does listen. She doesn't always agree with us, but you're right, she listens and she answers. That's better than sometimes some don't answer you. And you get that glared look in their eyes, they're looking over the top of you or over your shoulder when you talk to them. She doesn't do that. She will listen to you.
Okay. Was there yesterday for governor,
Mm-hmm.
seeing the governor last week along with Senator Rickett, Senator Fisher, quite the crowd out there, actually. Pretty neat for York County to have that facility when it's the only one in the country currently, so that was very interesting. No other meetings, but we've had a very eventful few weeks. We have to turn in the LATCF, report. That's done, and we've been doing some other stuff. And got our audit completed, and final draft. I assume we have that and sent that on, and that's all been submitted. And so then we also, to avoid a single point audit, we're doing a compliance report, and we got to work through that now this year. They gave us an option as a county to not pay for a single point audit, but to do this compliance report, which is going to be somewhat cheaper for us too. So, and as Elaine mentioned this morning, we do have to have the funds directed by the end of this year. A little bit wrong. It's actually done by 2026, not 2025 expenditures. So, so we'll have to work on that, obviously this year too. So that's been the main extent of what I've done over the last couple of weeks. You got anything? I guess we have the first forum tonight that I believe you'll be sitting in on.
Yep.
And then there'll be another one towards the end of the month. And so there'll be plenty of opportunities to hear about the future candidates and what they have to say. So other than that, anything else, gentlemen? Kelly? Nothing? We're adjourned. This says, yeah.